Hello, my fellow footage finders, and welcome back to the Movie Blues. Today on the show, I'm going to be bringing you my 5th found footage list video on this channel, this time spanning 15 recommendations from the genre that just keeps on giving. From brutal horror to teary dramas, from raunchy comedies to even a World War II film, these are the found footage gems that you've been desperately searching for. Each recommendation will be presented mostly spoiler-free, with streaming information up front as well. Just to reiterate, I choose these films based on their quality, their uniqueness to the genre, and their overall display of the talent going on behind the camera, regardless of budget. And just to prove that I'm not choosing these films by simply throwing a dart at a to-be-themed dartboard, here is the list of poor, unfortunate souls that I had to comb through to actually get these 15 recommendations. Now, again, these movies that I watched that I didn't choose, they're not terrible, they just didn't meet the criteria that I was looking for. Again, not terrible. So let's take a look at the list. Oh, that was terrible. Oh my god, I hated that one. Oh, that one bored me to absolute tears. That one was an actual piece of shit. I don't know. Never mind. I didn't like these movies. All right, now that we've got that out of the way, and before we get started, make sure that you've subbed to this channel, that you've checked out all of my previous found footage list videos that have covered 60 recommendations from across the genre. And now, without further rambling, I present to you 15 more found footage hidden gems.
LOLA.
LOLA is an alternative history sci-fi found footage period piece. The documentation of two sisters in 1938 who invent a machine that is capable of intercepting radio and TV signals from the future. This movie is easily one of the most ambitious found footage movies I've ever seen. The scope of this film is simply incredible, seamlessly blending subtle special effects with actual wartime footage, presenting an epic canvas of destruction as the sisters alter history through their meddling and predictions. So far, the budget for LOLA has yet to be published, but it's made so expertly that I'd believe you if you told me this film cost $10 million or $80 million. The filmmaking sleight of hand on display here is simply that good. This is the kind of movie that makes you believe in the timeless possibilities of the found footage genre, and is easily one of the most convincingly acted, gorgeously shot found footage movies ever. I mean, look at like any frame from this movie. This is cinema. Brimming with great sci-fi ideas and incredible performances, LOLA is a moving and triumphant genre masterpiece. Just when I thought I had seen the best that this genre has to offer, bam, check LOLA out now.
CUEVA, aka In Darkness We Fall.
Is La Cueva a good movie? Debatable. But is it a good found footage movie? Absolutely. If the primary aim of a potent found footage horror movie is to transport you into an inescapable first-person hellscape, then La Cueva surely achieves its goal. Of course, you're going to be saddled with a gaggle of insufferably annoying kids on a horny vacation, but once they decide to explore a hidden cave off the beaten path, this movie nosedives into the stuff of nightmares. For a movie that has no supernatural elements to speak of, La Cueva managed to make me feel more dread than any demon cult or any woods witch could. The cave these doofuses get themselves lost in isn't some vast open cavern, but it's instead a series of crawl tunnels, saltwater pools, and painfully low ceilings. I got some real first half of the Descent vibes from this entire movie, as we're locked for 4 days and lost hopelessly in the tightest space imaginable. They spend so much time looking for an exit in this movie that it almost feels like a liminal space horror video, as the cave just seems to feed into room after room forever. There are so many terrifying moments and set pieces in this movie, including a scene where a dude drops into a hole inside of the cave to try to swim his way out. And good god, does this shit look dicey to film. Like, was bro okay after this? As if that's not enough, then he swims down into the hole, and I can safely say that this is one of the most thalassophobic, claustrophobic sequences I've ever seen in any movie in my life. Good lord, no. I would rather just fucking die in the cave. How did they film this? Other than that, this movie is a simple, well-filmed, and utterly horrifying survival thriller that just keeps getting bleaker by the minute. While La Cueva is a monster-free movie, there were still plenty of huge jump scares and terrifying horror elements mixed in to keep things regularly shocking. A simple, sleek, and effective survival movie that goes to some truly savage places.
Godforsaken.
Holy hell. Godforsaken is a fairly large-scale slice of religious mayhem that follows a documentary crew as they investigate alleged reports of a local girl who has seemingly come back from the dead. Once the town finds out that she hath risen, they begin to flock to her home to see if she can perform miracles. And that is when things go absolutely tits up immediately. Unlike mostly every found footage movie out there, Godforsaken actually begins with a truly startling set piece in the first 5 minutes. A rarity considering how slowly these movies tend to kick off their plot. While this is obviously operating on a low budget, Godforsaken still packs a gaggle of brutal kills, shocking moments, and crazy reveals in its brief runtime. This was a uniquely disturbing found footage experience that drops you into a quaint snowy town as it careens into a hellish bloodbath. Love the scale of the setting here, with more extras and more mayhem than you'd typically find in a small-scale horror film like this. Fans of demonic possession and Dawn of the Dead-esque neighborhood meltdowns will feel at home in this suburban religious horror spectacle. A movie that starts with a bloody bang and doesn't let up until its final frame.
HORA.
Fans of my earlier found footage list videos will be familiar with our next director, Japanese horror maestro Koji Shiraishi, whose film Noroi the Curse and whose series Senritsu Kaiki File Koasugi have both made it onto previous list videos on my channel. If you haven't seen either of those yet, man, you've got some homework to do, but for the rest of us, Koji's anthology film HORA is a great piece of content despite your familiarity. As per usual for this director, this film is a mashup of J-horror tropes, zany special effects, and hair-raising urban legends. This time in an anthology format that covers everything from ghosts to psychics to even sea monsters. Or, sea buttholes. HORA is presented as a series of lost, banned, and illegal videotapes, with each segment running less than 5 minutes and ending typically in brutal fashion. Most anthology movies like the VHS series will give you a basic plot, character, and motivation behind their segments. But HORA skips all the bullshit and starts with each segment about 5 or so minutes from a paranormal tragedy. Like all of Koji's work, there's a perverse sense of humor behind this movie, even giving the viewer a safety warning within a few seconds of each death found in the film. Every time this warning popped up, I was like, oh boy, here we go. All in all, this is an eclectic, scary, sometimes goofy collection of horror shorts, all presented in a classic found footage or mockumentary style. A breezy watch, so long as you don't hit an exhaustion point after watching like 50 people die in a row. Another loony, scary, and definitively Japanese piece of content from one of the best found footage filmmakers to ever do it.
Project MKHEXE.
MKHEXE is a blender full of Lovecraftian dread, creepypasta lore, and a whole heaping pile of paranoia that combines into a mostly agreeable mixture. This is one of the beefiest found footage movies out there, stuffing its nearly 2-hour runtime full to the brim with exposition so dense and well illustrated that it almost becomes nauseating in its first hour. A young man grieving the sudden loss of his brother leads to an investigation and subsequent documentary about a rabbit hole of conspiracy theories that his brother was obsessed with, known as Project MKHEXE. The project is a Frankenstein monster of MK Ultra conspiracy theories, red-pilled chronically online delusions, and finally a web of cult-like acolytes who have experienced the demonic power of the MKHEXE project firsthand. This is one of those Russian doll-style found footage movies like Butterfly Kisses, where we're seeing movies inside of movies, found footages inside of found footages, and different filmed perspectives from people across the world who've tampered with the power and dark mysteries held by the elusive project. Not everything works here, and honestly this movie becomes fairly overwhelming at times with how many accounts are being told and how many theories are being floated at a given moment, but any fan of found footage horror is going to find a handful of threads that they will find satisfaction in here. Almost bordering on being an anthology film with how many pieces there are to this puzzle, MKHEXE is a dense and sometimes quite frightening pastiche of horrific stories that surround the mysterious project. Again, this movie was a big swing, and not everything landed, but it packed enough of a punch and introduced enough new ideas that made it a ride well worth taking. Now, turn off the lights and get ready to get MKHEXed, or Stuckmanized.
I blame society.
Killing all these people is starting to feel like work. It's not fun anymore.
Gotta say, outside of JWoww's recent found footage movie that I covered on this channel, the found footage genre is a mostly male-dominated space. That's why I found it so refreshing to see the 2020 film I Blame Society, directed and starring Gillian Wallace Horvat, a creepy and awkward character study anchored by a virtuoso performance of neurotic Jewish dread from Horvat herself. Knowing the found footage community, some of you will start this movie and then bail out because the lead actress is annoying. But I'd argue that that's absolutely the point. This is like Creep or Sorgoy Prakov or Be My Cat. I mean, you're not supposed to like this lady. Gillian is playing a raging narcissist, an amateur filmmaker who's probably on a couple different spectrums, and we watch as she documents her creative, personal, and mental downfall into complete crazy town.
And that is how you do a handcuff knot.
Spurred on by a comment made by her friend who said that Gillian would make a good murderer, Gillian decides to make a movie showing how she would allegedly commit the crime if she were to ever do it. It's very like OJ's book, If I Did It, but with a psychotically obsessed Jewish girl instead of the juice. And while flirting with these murderous ideas amidst a general mental and personal breakdown, Gillian begins blurring the lines between reality and fiction. I can't say enough about how pushy, memorable, and detestable Gillian's character is in this movie, and the film descends into a squirmy downfall that you simply cannot take your eyes away from. An actually funny and then actually deeply disturbing found footage movie from a female filmmaker who really makes this one of the best found footage movies on the entire list. I know it looks a little weird, but don't skip this one.
Embedded.
My issue with most found footage Bigfoot movies, and the reason that they haven't shown up in any of my videos thus far, boils down to two main issues that I have with the subgenre. One, it's usually just a movie about an annoying couple camping in the woods in a little tent, and you just see like, oh, something scratching the outside of the tent, and our fire got put out last night. Two, you never see the goddamn Bigfoot. Embedded from 2012 seems to gleefully rectify both of these issues, with tons of rattling Bigfoot horror action throughout, and a plot that involves a whole town rallying together to hunt the beast. The story is filmed by a reporter and his cameraman who had formerly been embedded in a platoon covering the war in Iraq. Now they find themselves at ground zero of a Sasquatch attack that has the whole town of Hatts Creek taking to the woods to find their missing kin. The guys who made this clearly love the vibe of movies like First Blood and, of course, Aliens, with a gruff militia of hardasses going after Bigfoot armed to the teeth. This isn't so much a scary movie as it is an enjoyable popcorn found footage flick, with a slightly comedic tone and a pretty solid budget. The creature costume might not be the best thing that I've ever seen, but the sound effects are top notch and the creature's speed and ferocity makes up for kind of the ape suit we got going on. All in all, a really fun Bigfoot movie, and not just a movie where a terrified couple shines a flashlight inside of a tent for an hour and a half. Embedded is a fun night at the movies, with Bigfoot, with the big guy.
The last horror movie.
In each of my found footage list videos, I like to call out a true classic from early in the genre's lifespan. A movie that deserves to still be a part of the cultural conversation in found footage fandom discourse. So, congrats, you sickos, because we're doing the last horror movie from 2003. This is the granddaddy of found footage movies like Capture, Kill, Release, Long Pigs, the Poughkeepsie Tapes, Creep, and on and on. We follow serial maniac Max and his recently hired assistant/cameraman as they document Max's utterly unhinged spree. That kind of feels an awful lot like American Psycho, especially with Bro both looking and sounding exactly like Christian Bale.
I'd say I do about 8, maybe 10 people a year. Men, women, I don't really care.
If you're able to vibe with that, then this is actually quite an opus of destruction that I found really compelling and consistently sinister. These movies only excel when you have a truly enigmatic lead, and actor and star Kevin Howarth is surely up to the task. With charisma and bravado, this dude oozes evil for an hour and a half, and he carries the movie throughout its disgusting and brutal vignettes. A rather layered character study of an unhinged psychopath, the last horror movie is an utterly brutal but undeniably influential horror epic. It also has like a really cool conceit set up as a found footage movie. It's meant to be like he taped all of his crimes over a tape and then returned it to the video store and you've rented that tape. It's cute. You'll see. It's cute. Anyway, this movie's fucked up, but check it out.
Chest.
Director Aaron Irons' film Chest isn't free from the classic tropes that infest every Lost in the Woods found footage movie. But it still managed to eke out a bevy of great set pieces and reveals despite its familiar trappings. A documentary team heads to the East Tennessee mountains to investigate the legend of an infamously cursed box, a mystery that steadfastly leads the team to their doom. There are some really hardcore and unexpected moments of brutality in this one. And while it doesn't do much to shirk its Blair Witchy surroundings, the film's final act packs enough of a punch to make the ride well worth it. Like many of these movies, the budget is bare and the setup might test your patience, but the ending was walloping enough to recommend this movie to anybody looking for another deadly romp in the woods. Also, I don't care what the occasion is. If you find this fucking thing in a cave in the middle of the woods while you're already totally screwed, don't open it. Who would ever open it? Don't open it. Just don't do that. That's really dumb.
Spiral Drive.
Every now and then, as I research selections for these videos, I come across a movie that feels like something you'd make with your buddies in high school. The kind of found footage film with a budget so low that you're basically watching people play pretend in the woods with no crew, no real sets, and barely $1 on screen. While you can easily dismiss a movie like Spiral Drive as a no-budget student film, I wanted to include it in this video because it highlights what is so accessible and awesome about this genre for new and aspiring filmmakers. Spiral Drive chronicles a road trip with two estranged friends who are moving to LA to chase their dreams of working in Hollywood. Soon after the trip begins, we find out that one of the guys is hiding some big secrets from the other, and this tension becomes the centerpiece of the film as the boys become hopelessly lost on their trip, eventually encountering a creature beyond their comprehension. Spiral Drive has some entry-level acting, sure.
Yep, he's an actor.
But it's also a cleverly written movie with some surprisingly well-done special effects, and with some actually engaging creature lore. Now, I wouldn't exactly say that this is the next Milk and Cereal, but it did remind me of that film's DIY approach and obviously earnest creatives behind the scenes. If you're looking for a truly ambitious, free, and hour-long found footage movie, this is a great little film that shows a lot of potential in the people who made it. I laughed quite a few times watching this. I felt that the tension was pretty palpable, not only with the creature stuff, but also between the two leads. Like, their relationship was really tense and awkward, and really fun to watch. And yeah, I was just damn proud of these guys for making such an engaging project out of literal pennies on the dollar. For another stirring example of how found footage is something we can all create and believe in, then watch Spiral Drive for some real amateur inspiration.
A record of sweet murder.
So yeah, this is the first time I've ever had two movies from the same director in the same found footage list video. But to be fair, I didn't realize that this was another Koji Shiraishi joint until the credits finally rolled. Once again, Shiraishi, the director of Noroi the Curse and Uru-Ora from earlier on this list, remains one of the most pivotal and imaginative directors in the history of the found footage genre. And with A Record of Sweet Murder, he presents his most graphic and unsettling vision yet. A South Korean reporter is contacted by an old childhood friend, a man who just escaped a mental institution where he's been since he was 10 years old. Luring the reporter and her cameraman to an abandoned apartment building, the deranged Park Sang-joon tells the reporter about how he has been commanded by a mysterious god to execute a rash of ritualistic killings for a bizarre and terrifying purpose. This is one of the only found footage films in history that attempts to be captured in one long take. And while I clocked maybe 5 or so secret hidden cuts throughout the film, it was still a pretty seamless and impressive experience that gave the movie this unsettling stage play caginess, while being delivered in real time. Furthermore, this is a movie that takes place in one static location, and between that and the long take aspect, this is one of the most unique and ambitious found footage movies I've ever seen. Although I need to be frank up front here, a trigger warning for some really odd and disturbing sexual violence in this movie. Sadly, this was an element of the thing that really disrupted the experience for me and almost made me turn it off. But truthfully, the final act of this film is absolutely worth the agony it takes to get there, with one of the best final sections I've seen in a found footage movie in quite some time. A raw, brutal, and cleverly devised found footage film that was actually unforgettable, and further cements director Koji Shiraishi as a true visionary in the genre. A Record of Sweet Murder was consistently nail-biting and had my attention from start to finish, delivering an absolute gut punch of a found footage experience with some incredible twists and reveals. This is another must-watch.
The ceremony is about to begin.
It's clear, with The Ceremony is about to begin, that director Sean Nichols Lynch had his heart in the right place, wringing some horrific and memorable moments out of a super low-budget situation with the help of a couple really committed actors. In an effort to locate his missing ex-girlfriend, a filmmaker travels to a cult compound to interview Anubis, the head of an Egyptian-obsessed New Age spirit cult. The central character dynamic of the film between documentarian and subject reminded me a lot of the Creep series in its awkwardness and bubbling tension. And even though this movie seemed constrained by its minimal budget, it's still shot for the fences with an ancient Egyptian cult horror story packed with some wild turns. Clearly inspired by recent viral cult documentaries like Mother God, which, if you haven't watched that, holy shit, watch that. The Ceremony is about to begin is the Egyptian cult crossbreed documentary found footage movie you've been waiting for. Specific want, I know, but I felt like this was something I needed, so enjoy.
Ask.
Chris Vanderkay, welcome back to Put It Out There, the channel that teaches you to speak your truth into the world so that it becomes a truth of the world.
This movie is the definition of DIY. Director, writer, star, cameraman, probably producer, editor, Chris Vanderkay plays Chris Vanderkay. And while I actually laughed when I saw the trailer for this movie, and while I never planned to watch it and surely didn't see myself putting it on this list, I saw some praise for this movie, I decided to follow through, and holy shit, here we are. Anyway, let's do this. Let's do Ask. When I say DIY, I mean, look at my man running from the police in this movie. This is like a siren that you buy on Temu. And yes, it's fucking pronounced Temu. Look it up. I don't want to do this again. Vanderkay even wrote an entire horrifying plotline around getting dental veneer surgery in real life. And that is what we call turning lemons into lemonade, people. I found myself like in a trance watching this movie as this dumpy YouTuber guy who used to be homeless shells out business and life advice to his non-existent fan base.
Best of luck to you, though. You got a real talent telling people what they want to hear without really telling them anything at all.
Until a chance meeting with a mysterious life coach turns his entire world upside down. Somehow, this movie managed to do a lot with this zany and egotistical character. And as his life begins to supernaturally and mysteriously become altered, his character goes through some really hilarious changes and tribulations. Chris Vanderkay seems like a really imaginative and motivated filmmaker. And the movie he made here is a darkly funny, uncomfortable, and ultimately homemade found footage gem with a bizarre and somehow captivating lead performance. Great job, Chris. And yeah, this is also a great little movie to watch if you're a struggling YouTuber. Just a lot of things hit home. Not the getting veneers thing. My teeth are okay.
inner demons.
Usually, elevated horror is something that doesn't often creep into the found footage subgenre, which makes Inner Demons from 2014 that much more special. The topics of drug abuse and addiction are tackled head-on in this frankly rattling found footage horror film that takes its topics seriously while still delivering shocking and effective scares. Carson is a struggling addict from a quaint religious family in California, but as her inner demons begin to ruin her life, an intervention is planned with a film crew in tow. Nobody believes Carson is actually possessed by a demon like she claims, because after all, why trust the word of an out-of-control addict? This smokescreen allows Carson's possession to go unchecked, and as she moves into a rehab clinic for detox, things quickly go from bad to way worse. This is a punchy, truly effective, and disturbing spin on the possession genre, with some solid acting and some deep thematic work along the way. This movie was handled seriously, and its escalation instills a fair amount of dread. The actors and performances here are committed and well fleshed out, and the horror aspects pack a serious wallop as Carson's addiction morphs into a deadly possession. Check this one out for a hell of a rehab stint.
Donny's bar mitzvah. Or Donny's party. They changed the name. What?
5 shots of tequila all around. Let's put a roofie in every single one of them.
Fans of Tim and Eric and I Think You Should Leave will find a lot to love in Donny's Bar Mitzvah, one of the most raunchy and unhinged comedies from the past 10 years that seems to have fallen under most people's radars. And yeah, it looks like they've since changed the name of this movie to Donny's Party. Probably because being Jewish is about as popular as being OJ is in 2025. And yeah, speaking as a Jew here, by the way. Regardless, this is a hilarious and completely insane movie that is presented as an edited VHS tape from Donny's Bar Mitzvah. If you've ever had or ever been to a bar mitzvah, I mean, Donny's got a movie theme for his bar mitzvah. I had a movie theme for my bar mitzvah. This hit close to home again. There is lots to love and laugh at with this movie for those who are familiar with the bar mitzvah scene, but to those unfamiliar with the cliches of American Jewish bar mitzvah bashes, you'll still have plenty to crack up over here. Using VHS-style filmmaking and a handful of hilarious editing tricks that you'd see on any bar mitzvah tape from the 90s, Donny's Party or whatever takes an event that many of us are nostalgically familiar with and injects it with pitch black comedy and a handful of disgusting and insane gags. Within 10 minutes of starting this movie, you'll see and hear things you'd never expect in a film like this. And I gotta give props to the filmmakers here for going balls to the wall in every way imaginable.
I'm telling you, you can f my wife.
Gross, insane, and chock to the brim with unforgettably unhinged moments, Donny's Bar Mitzvah may be the perfect come down from the volley of unceasing horrors found on the rest of this list. Enjoy this batshit insane found footage comedy, and of course, Mazel Tov. And that's it, people. We've reached the end of the rainbow here for found footage. Of course, I'm always researching new selections. I'm always looking for new talent out there. So if you've got a found footage film you want me to see, send it over. If you've got some recommendations for new found footage movies I haven't seen, put them in the comments below. Once again, I am your faithful narrator, DS Lyons of the Movie Blues. Thanks for coming, and we will see you next time. Bye!
'Cause I love you, and I love you, and I love you, and I've seen all your movies, and I love your movies, and I think you're the best.